Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 204 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We hope all of you are continuing to do well and are staying safe and healthy wherever you are. Coming up in this episode, we have a couple of roster moves. We learn where Alex O'Connell will play college basketball as soon as next season, and an interview with one of the all-time Duke legends. But first, the intros. It is Donald here. I'm still in Charlotte, North Carolina, just up the road in Durham. I have Sam Klein. Sam, how you doing? How you holding up?
I am doing okay. I am still at home in Durham alone. And well, I guess my roommate is here, but effectively alone. And it is Passover. So my diet is more limited. But otherwise, everything is fine.
I actually participated in a Seder just yesterday with a few friends. So
very nice.
It was very, yeah.
We could talk about that at the end of the show. That sounds fun.
Yeah. But also in Atlanta, we have the resident ATLian, Jason Evans. Jason, what's up?
Not a lot. Are we going to do Seders later on? Because I did a 33-person Zoom Seder last night. And I will let you... 33 people. I will let you guess who was the organizer, the captain of the Seder, the person who is in charge of everything. You get two guesses. The first guess doesn't count.
You're better half.
I don't have a guess.
Me.
I don't have a guess for your specific question, but I can guess who talked the most.
Me. The answer to both questions is Jason Evans.
Boom. We're starting out right here. Okay, guys. First thing first, we had a couple of roster changes. First off, Patrick Tapé has recommitted to the Duke Blue Devils, which happened like 2 hours or so after we recorded the last episode. So in the span of
by the way, have to massive shout out to Donald, because when we were talking about this, we were saying, "Oh, Patrick Tapé, we hardly knew you. He's decommitted," and I was all ready to say he's going someplace else. And Donald went ahead and said, "I guess he could still come back to Duke." I almost jumped in and said, "What are you talking about? That just doesn't happen. Guys don't decommit and then it doesn't happen. Forget it."
You know what else
is right?
We don't get locked in our houses for months at a time because of a pandemic. So the rules are completely out the window right now. I said, I think I was along those lines, Jason. I said, all right, farewell. We hold nothing against him. There's nothing wrong with that. And then I think like just a couple hours after we put that episode up online, because I think folks know we've been trying to coordinate the news with some of the guests that we've had on. We put that episode up, and then right after that, he recommits and he's back. The thing I wanted to talk about on this is I'm still confused, because he committed and we said, all right, maybe he knows that Matthew Hurt is leaving. We've discussed how Vernon Carey hasn't formally left for the draft yet, but everyone expects him to. He's going to be a first-round pick. He had an excellent season for Duke, etc. So maybe Patrick Tapé knows, because the staff told him that Matthew Hurt is leaving, even though Matthew Hurt hasn't announced anything yet. And so therefore there's room for Tapé, not just on the roster, but in the rotation. Then he decommits. So maybe he got some other information, and then he recommits right after that. And in that time frame, we have gotten no information, at least about big men in the Duke program. We obviously heard about Cassius Stanley the other day, but nothing on big men. Donald, what do you like? What happened?
So I will say this. I mentioned this on the last episode, episode 203. There have been times where guys have decommitted from a program only to recommit later on. Now, I will preface by normally it is guys who are high school seniors who have committed early to a program, and then they say, oh, I kind of want to reopen my commitment. They do that. They look around for a few weeks, a few months, and then they end up coming back to the program that they committed to in the first place. But this happened in the span of a week. This is unheard of. This part, literally 8 sun cycles. I mean, there's no days now, but 8 sun cycles. He committed, decommitted, and then recommitted.
He's also still presumably he's still finishing school at Columbia. So like while this was going on, he was in class. And, you know, I don't know the kid personally, but I'm assuming that if he's a senior at Columbia and that he hung around long enough, he's at least studious enough that he's still paying attention to his lectures, even if they're online. Right. So he was going through this whole process while he was still in the middle of his education.
Guys,
it's kind of wild. Jason, what do you think?
So the intel here what I've heard through sources, so to speak, not that this is some, not that these are like people in the program.
Get on with it.
Anyway, the intel is that he was concerned that he might not be good enough to really play a large role for Duke. And he decommitted because there were other programs that were saying to him, we have a big role for you. We know you can play here. And that the Duke coaches then spoke to Patrick some more and said to him, no, we really do see a role for you. Here is how we think you fit into our plans.
Jason.
And it doesn't necessarily relate to whether or not Matthew Hurt is coming back. It's just completely separate from that. They said, here's the role we think you will have next year. And Patrick sort of looked at things and said, okay, that makes sense. I can live with that.
So I want to bottle up what you just said. I don't want to dispute the truth of the rumors that you've heard, but I would love to bottle that up and analyze it next year. We'll definitely be putting Patrick Tapé minutes or something into the stats game, because I mean, we have no precedent for Duke taking graduate transfers. We don't know how he's going to perform in the ACC. We talked a little bit. If you want to go back to episode 202, you can hear our general preview of what we expect from him, but it was pretty rosy relative to his whole body of work. And so I'm excited to look forward in a year and say, oh yeah, sure, he played 15 minutes a game and averaged 6 points and 8 rebounds. I'm fine with that. Is that going to happen? Don't know.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
So I think a good comparison is Javin DeLaurier. I would not be surprised to see Patrick Tapé play the same kind of role that Javin DeLaurier played this year. Javin played about 30% of the available minutes in games. He wasn't a starter, but certainly there were some games where he was popping over 20 minutes. But most games he was in the 10 to 14, 15 minute kind of range. I think that's probably what we can expect from Patrick Tapé next year.
And hopefully,
but that means that Mark Williams. That means that Mark Williams is ready to play 20 to 25, maybe even 30 minutes a game.
No, it's not. It means that Matthew Hurt is playing ostensibly the 5 for Duke a lot next year, which is what I think will be the case. I'm not saying that Matthew Hurt is going to plant his butt in the post the same way Vernon Carey did. That would be stupid. That would be crazy. That would be not using what Matthew Hurt is really good at. But I think that you are going to see plenty of lineups. Most of the time next year, you're going to see Matthew Hurt as ostensibly the biggest guy on the floor for Duke.
If not somebody else who might be even smaller, right? You can see Duke going small with someone like Jalen Johnson or even Joey Baker being the biggest guy on the team.
I don't know about Joey Baker, but Jalen Johnson, Matthew Hurt and Jalen Johnson, who are both 6'9", are going to be the 2 biggest players for Duke, more than 20 minutes a game. That's my prediction.
And obviously we don't know yet if Hurt is coming back. I'm operating the assumption of just kind of there's a big question mark there. But I think that will obviously alter what our depth looks like next year if Hurt does come back. And if he's not there, then that means that one of these guys, one of these freshmen is going to need to be ready to play 25 to 30 minutes. But we will see how that works out. But Tapé, as of now, this sun cycle that we're recording, is a Duke Blue Devil, and hopefully it stays that way.
Well, he's still a Columbia Lion for probably a few more weeks, but sure.
Yeah, go graduate and then come to Durham safely once the stay-at-home orders are lifted. Okay, guys, next up we move to Cassius Stanley. Stanley announced a couple days ago that he will, in fact, declare for the 2020 NBA draft. There was probably a half a hope among some Duke fans that he would stick around for his sophomore season, but he instead will test himself at the next level. For me, he was an absolute joy to watch this year with his freak athleticism and just the dunks that brought every house down that he ever stood in. Sam, what will you miss most about the man we call Cash?
I think you took it right out of my mouth. The high flying and the dunks. He was reminiscent of, and we talked a lot about all the great Duke dunkers and how Cassius Stanley is right up there with guys like Gerald Henderson, Grant Hill, we got a few emails about Ricky Price, who I don't remember so well, but I will trust the collective wisdom of our listener base.
Those were good shouts.
Oh yeah. So Cassius Stanley's just total athleticism. I'm not super surprised that he left. I feel like he showed a lot of potential this year and showed NBA ready athleticism. He's not an elite shooter yet. He's not an elite defender yet, but you can see those things coming for him. And so there wasn't a ton more, I feel like, that he could have proved next year on a team that's going to have a lot of wings. So even if he was going to be the best of them, I don't know how much better he was going to be. He already shot 36% from three and 47 from the field. Pretty good numbers for a freshman. And not to mention that he's also old for his class. So he's going to be, I think he's 21 when the draft comes around. So
I think that play had a lot to do with it.
It definitely made sense to me that Stanley
he said that. Yeah. He said in his when he left, he said that potential and age and youth had a lot to do with his decision making.
And look, when it's all said and done, we know that his dad is involved in the sports industry. He's getting good knowledge both from his family and from Coach K and from Duke. So it seems like he's making the right decision for himself, and we will miss him. I think the team would have been better with Stanley next year than it will be without him. But good luck to him, and hope that he succeeds in the NBA.
So I think when it comes to Stanley, it's weird, right? Usually, I mean, fast forward, or flashback 10 years ago, guys are leaving. It meant that they were a lottery pick. I feel like in this case, Cash will probably be in the second round, but he could end up in a great situation. I think that is where this analysis that you were talking about, Sam, with his dad being so connected with NBA circles and Coach K being so connected, that landing it in the second round in a good situation could still be just as good as being in the first round in a less comfortable situation where he's dipping back and forth from the G League. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Jason, why don't you bring it home for us?
I think he's probably going to spend a fair bit of time in the G League next year. There's nothing wrong with that because teams are going to want him to get a little more experience, a little more playing time. And I'm not sure he's going to get a ton of playing time in the NBA right away. There are some skills he brings, and certainly he brings athleticism that will be NBA ready, but he needs some seasoning. Nothing wrong with that. That's not there are plenty of guys who go to the NBA who are in those shoes. From the standpoint of Duke, if you look back at Duke's stats from last year, this is the guy who played the second most minutes of anybody on the team. This is the team's second leading rebounder. He was, other than a short period of time when he was injured and his minutes and production dipped a little bit, this was a guy who was, really consistently a really solid performer for this team. I would say unquestionably right behind Trey Jones and Vernon Carey. I thought he was the third best player on the team, and I don't think it's at all controversial to say that about him. And we're going to miss,
similar perhaps, Jason, to recent Duke one and done players like Gary Trent Jr. or had we not won the national championship in 2015, Justice Winslow, guys who were very productive, not the stars on the team, but Trent and Winslow both could be good NBA comps for Stanley someday, and both having, real good professional careers.
Yeah. And I don't blame him at all for going pro. He's in a good spot. He got good advice from his father and other people about the situation. We're going to miss seeing him on the fast break. God, he was just, it was awe-inspiring to watch him at times and his elevation. But he leaves as a beloved Dookie. There's no question about that.
And I'll add, finally, I got to talk to him a couple times after games or at press availability, and especially of the freshmen, but even among all the Duke players that we've spoken with over the years, seems like a pretty smart, introspective guy. So look forward, hopefully, to having him on the show sometime down the road when he's in the league.
Athleticism and upside, two of the things that NBA teams covet the most, and two of the things that he has in buckets. So best of luck, Cash. We will see you in the league and probably making someone else your poster. Finally, a couple weeks ago, we discussed Alex O'Connell's transfer out of the Duke program, and we now know where he will play. I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know what day it was when he announced that he would be heading to Creighton to play for Greg McDermott and the Blue Jays. It was also reported that he's working hard to graduate early from Duke so that he would be classified as a graduate transfer and would then be eligible to play next year. Jason, I go to you. Is this a good landing spot for AOC?
It's a good landing spot in that it's a very successful program. To me, it's be very interesting if he is able to graduate and be immediately eligible. He's not going to walk into a starting position. This Creighton team is absolutely loaded for next year. There's only one senior on the roster, Kelvin Jones, who is their big man. He's the only guy on the roster who played, even 25% of the minutes, who is a senior who's expected to leave. Most of the other guys, I don't think Tyshawn Alexander has declared for the NBA, and I don't think he's going to. The rest of their roster are all sophomores and juniors. And so Alex O'Connell's going to be walking into a situation where, I can't really see at best. I guess he might be the sixth man, probably the sixth or the seventh man on that team. Because they are going to be really good, like preseason top 5 kind of good next year. If he does not graduate and if he has to put things off for another year, then he walks into a much better situation because they've got four of their 5 best players are all juniors, current juniors who next year would be seniors who will then graduate. They have a couple good sophomores and a decent freshman or two as well. So it's not like Creighton will suddenly be downhill, but I actually think if Alex O'Connell wants to find a place where he's going to shine a bit, where he's going to have a large role, a lot of us predicted, he's going to go somewhere, be a starter and average, around 15 points per game. If he wants that kind of situation for himself, I think he's actually better waiting another year before he becomes eligible, because next year at Creighton, I don't see he'll have a large role. He won't have a starter role for sure on next year's Creighton team.
Jason, I see the same thing that you do. And the only part of the story to me that doesn't make sense for O'Connell is that he might be pursuing graduating now and being immediately eligible. We have heard from Duke teams in the past and certainly from other programs about the value of having these guys who are sitting out or who are redshirting for whatever reason being the quote unquote practice squad. It's not, you don't have a formal practice squad in basketball the way you do in football, but you could imagine Alex O'Connell being a very valuable bench practice squad player for, like you mentioned, Tyshawn Alexander going up against in practice, and having O'Connell doing all the scouting of opposing point guards and shooting guards and small forwards. I think he'd be very well served to do that for a Creighton team next year that, as you said, is projected to be top 10, if not top 5. And then using that graduate year as his year to shine on the court.
And let's not forget, obviously we're in crazy times right now. Alex O'Connell is almost certainly not going to be able to spend all summer getting to know Creighton and their system and his teammates and things like that. I think he's better off taking that year and beginning to get to know the program. That redshirt year, if you will, that he spends is time that he would get to know the other guys on Creighton, get to know what kind of schemes they run, as opposed to, it is entirely possible if he were to graduate over the summer from Duke and become immediately eligible, that he would arrive on the Creighton campus knowing nothing about any of these other guys. And I think it's to his disadvantage. It is way to his advantage. It's way better for him to take this year off and figure out what's going on, especially because of the times we're in, and you can't figure it out in the off season because everyone is at home during the off season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing. I mean, on the flip side, he now has all the time in the world to finish his schoolwork and graduate. So maybe that is a motivation for him. We will see what happens for him, but obviously best of luck for him at Creighton next year or the year after, whenever he ends up beginning to play his final season of eligibility. Coming up, we have an exclusive interview with one of the all-time great Duke players, and we have a little fun. We're going to talk about Mike Gundy's latest coronavirus rant, but we will discuss all that in a minute after this break. Well, guys, we teased it earlier, and now here it is. Over the weekend, we were able to sit down with a man who really needs no introduction. His number 23 is in the rafters at Cameron Indoor Stadium, and we got to talk to him about his career at Duke as a pro and now his new career as a budding coach. Make sure your rent is paid, because here is an interview with the landlord, Shelden Williams. And we are joined now by one of the legends of Duke basketball, a man who really needs no introduction except to be called by one name, the landlord. That's right. Shelden Williams has joined us on the DBR Podcast. Shelden, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to first briefly start about your time in the NBA. We usually start about time at Duke, but we have Jason here for a little bit. And Jason, why don't you kick us off with questions about him in the NBA?
And Shelden, let me start with this. Tell folks what you're currently doing, because it's connected to your NBA career. What are you involved in right now?
Right now, I'm assistant coach for the College Park Skyhawks, which is the G League team for Atlanta Hawks. So I've been doing that for the past 2 years. And now everybody's kind of in this quarantine phase.
Yeah. Hey, tell us what your quarantine experience has been like so far. Just talk about what these crazy times, having nothing to do with basketball, what they've been like for you. I think folks are interested in hearing how others are experiencing this crisis.
Honestly, the first week I was over here purposely trying to clean up one room at a time in my place, whatever, just kind of give me something to do on a daily basis. But then after that week was over, I pretty much had everything clean. So I'm like, all right, what's next? So I kind of started a podcast a little bit last week, where I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and just talk to former teammates and friends, and kind of do IG Live interviews, and things like that, kind of get back into sports and basketball mode, as much as I can, since, it's only so much, old games that you can actually see on repeat. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm kind of tired of seeing the same thing over and over again too. So just trying to keep myself, occupied with different things. Try to go outside the house and walk up and down the street a little bit just to get out the house a little bit. But honestly, it's just the same as everybody else, been kind of, avoiding as best as they can to try not be stir crazy or cabin fever.
Oh yeah. Oh, we know all about that. Hey, talk a little bit about. Let's go back to your time. I as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of the Atlanta Hawks. And I've been watching the team for a long, long time. And you were drafted by the Hawks. Talk about the transition from college to the pros. Not maybe didn't go as smooth as some thought it would for you, huh?
Well, yeah, it's I went from being at an organization that was ran pretty well from top to bottom. A lot of communication. And then all of a sudden I go to Atlanta Hawks, where I instantly became like the fourth oldest guy on the team, just right out of college. We had the youngest team in the NBA at that time. And communication wasn't the same as it was when I was at Duke. The coach didn't talk to all the players like that, and which kind of baffled me, because I was always built on a system where, even in high school, the coaches always talk to the players, no matter if it's a star player or even the bottom players. Always know right or wrong, they talk to the players. So it wasn't necessarily like that when I came and joined Atlanta. So that was kind of the biggest difference from what I was used to where, I was, becoming, which is a little bit odd, because you think when you're a professional ranks, it'll be more communication because of that. But
Shelden, I gotta tell you, as a huge Hawks fan, hearing you dump on Billy Knight, the GM, and Mike Woodson, the coach, makes me happy, because they were awful. I'm thrilled to hear this.
Yeah, honestly, it was more so, like I said, not to really dump on him, but it wasn't really Billy Knight. It was more so the coach. For me, I didn't have a lot of communication going on with that. Me and Billy Knight, we had a good relationship. It's just that with the coach and everything, it wasn't really necessarily like that. Then obviously when I was in with the Atlanta Hawks, Billy Knight and Woodson had like some kind of issue, whatever, and then that happened during my time as well. So honestly, the whole timing of me coming here, it wasn't the right time, I guess. But I tried to make the most of it as much as I could before I asked for a trade.
And eventually, after your NBA career sort of was winding down, you played a little bit overseas. Talk a little bit about how that, how you worked that out and what that was like.
Yeah, so towards I think it was like my 7th year, I believe. I played in the NBA. I was with the New Jersey Nets right after that the year of the lockout, the last year in New Jersey, and I had a chance to come back and play with a couple of teams for a 1-year deal. But when I got an offer overseas that was going to pay me more money and the teams were going to pay taxes, it was like a no-brainer at that point where you trying to solidify more so the money than they're playing the NBA. So I took that route and played 1 year in Europe for a EuroLeague team, and then found out about China and played 2 years in China before I wound up hanging it up.
And talk a little bit about coaching. So you past couple of years, you've gotten back into the NBA, well, the G League, at least in terms of coaching for the Hawks affiliate. What are the things that that you think, the perspective that you're able to give to those players? What are you able to give them the most in terms of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I took a year off after I retired, and then I got into scouting. So I was the West Coast scout for Brooklyn Nets for about 3 years, and I enjoyed doing that, just getting back around a game. But it was more so names on papers and not really having a relationship with guys. So I wanted to go ahead and extend and go look into coaching, and I had a chance to go back to Atlanta where things came full circle, and I was able to do that, and it's been good. I've been coaching for the last 2 years, and it's been more so relationship with guys where I'm working with the bigs, especially with the Atlanta G League team. I've been working with the bigs a lot, and just kind of having myself able to go out there on the court with them, kind of mess around a little bit with them, play a little more one-on-one. It's more personable for me to be with the guys versus this when I was doing their scouting, where it was just like no connection with guys. So I have a good time just being able to pretty much show them what I've seen, what I see during the game, what I've been through. Talked about obviously a lot of these guys are overseas too, so talk about my experiences overseas as well. So I'm able to pass down a lot of knowledge to these guys.
Shelden, this is Donald here, and we want to now go back to your time at Duke. You came to Duke in 2002. You were part of a huge, big heralded class. You had 4 McDonald's All-Americans as teammates. And what did you expect out of that group? And really, who out of that group, other than yourself, impressed you the most?
Well, yeah, we came in with 6 guys, 4 of them, like you said, being a McDonald's All-American. It was just a very exciting time because we had a lot of big plans. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to win a championship when I was there, especially since our sophomore year was we felt like that was our year to do it in 2004. But it didn't work out for us. But I would say that we all had big goals. We came in on campus with our class. And obviously, the person who's impressed me the most was JJ. The way he shot the ball, I've never seen the guy who shot the ball as well as he did. Coming into college, and especially after college. I still haven't seen a guy who can catch fire like that and can shoot from anywhere on the court, and it's just been an amazing thing.
Yeah, and when you arrived at Duke, you obviously had a lot of great players that were already there. You had Chris Duhon, Casey Sanders, Dante Jones. Even for big men, you had Nick Horvath. What did you learn from those guys? And really, as a freshman, how did you take their leadership and apply it to your game?
Yeah, so those guys were good upperclassmen. They came in and was able to help us out with camaraderie. They used to come in and pick us up from our dorm because we had freshman campus a little bit separated from everybody else. So they come in and pick us up from our dorm and take us to different events or team events or practices. To kind of build up camaraderie like that, and just being able to pick these guys' brains throughout the season, where what we see on TV when we were in high school, now we actually go in there and playing these top teams. It was just great, especially with Chris Duhon, who was the floor general of our team and leader of our team, to actually tell us hey, this is how it was when I came in as a freshman. Obviously, he came in on an already great Duke team and wound up winning his freshman year. His experiences from that role and how he was trying to get back to that same platform so we can actually compete again for another championship.
Yeah, and really just we saw your game blossom over your 4 years. Obviously, you have a jersey in the rafters. Nobody wears number 23 ever again because of the accomplishments that you made. But you played for some amazing Duke teams. Which one was the best? And I will ask you this question and give you the caveat that I graduated in 2004. So your freshman and sophomore year are the two best answers, but we'll accept any answer that you may have.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, 04 was our best year. I mean, we went and we had a already pretty much established team with just one young guy on the team, which was Blue Wall. It was freshman year. But so we had a team that's already kind of been through the fire a little bit after our big class, our freshman year, six people that came in. So we come in and we knew from the start that we were going into the Final Four. That's how we had our mindsets coming in my sophomore year. And we wound up going up to Alaska, the Great American Shootout, and we wound up losing to Purdue in the championship game. We had a kind of like, a big team meeting and, trying to make sure that we all on the same page and what our goals were. And I think we wound up winning like 20 straight games right after that. We didn't lose again until like the championship of HC tournament, I believe. So that probably was my best team year that we ever been a part of. Obviously, we went to the Final Four. It didn't go our way against UConn, but that was probably our best year.
Yeah, and speaking of that year, I was in the stands. That was my senior year, my final game. Tell me, was Emeka Okafor fouling you as much as we thought he was? Because in my opinion, he should have fouled out maybe 12 minutes into the game, but instead he's there to really just destroy us in the second half and really just steal this game away from us.
Yeah, it's crazy because I wind up getting him a foul trouble in the first half, and he doesn't pick up another foul the rest of the game, and he fouls out 5 or 6 of our bigs, which is crazy because he doesn't pick up another foul, and all 5 or 6 of our bigs fouls out. And obviously that kind of stings a little bit because we knew that was really the championship game. I mean, no disrespect to Georgia Tech, but we had beat them already 2 or 3 times a year, so we knew what we had to do to beat them. It's just that we didn't have a chance to get to that point to even to do it. But yeah, we knew that UConn had all the buzz coming in, and they had UConn and UConn women's team, and I knew that we all knew that coming in that they was trying to have the first time having the men and women win at the same time. So we knew all that coming in. But yeah, I would say that it was some calls that wasn't called our way that actually wind up going against us and helping UConn out too.
All right, Shelden, this is Sam. I want to transition a little bit from talking about your playing days to kind of your relationship with the program now and sort of what's going on at Duke these days. We talked to Chris Duhon the other day and asked him this question, and I'd like to get your perspective too about when you were in school, most of the guys, with a couple exceptions, but most of the guys who came in stayed for 4 years, even if they were All-Americans or setting records like you were. Everyone was staying in school. Nowadays, obviously, Duke gets all these great players who leave after 1 year. Do you think that there's a change that Mike Krzyzewski made in the sort of recruiting and development program at Duke, or do you think it's more a function of what's going on around him and him wanting to compete in the modern basketball era?
Yeah, it was definitely a change. I mean, for a while, as you saw the teams before, it was probably about a handful of guys that actually left after his freshman year, and Coach K's time at Duke. And then I want to say after we had graduated in 2006, he adapted, which makes Coach K a great coach. He adapted to basketball and the times and started going after the guys that he necessarily wouldn't have gone after at first. And like I said, times have changed, and that would make Coach K such a great coach. He can relate to a lot of different players in different time periods as well. and he went after guys that was able to come in and be big-time factors right away.
How nowadays do you stay in touch with the program? Have you ever participated in the K Academy? Do you come back for games? Who are like the guys you're still talking to from your time at school?
Yeah, so it was hard to go back when I played. So recently, the last 3, maybe 4 years, I've been going back to the K Academy. Even if I'm maybe not able to go the whole time, I try to go as much as I can. And that's another way I try to, stay in touch with the guys and the younger guys as well. Especially now that I'm coaching, I have my summers to myself a little bit more so than I did when I was playing. So I'm able to go back and do that. I still talk to a lot of the guys, especially from my class. I've talked to the guys who are not in my class. I talked to Daniel Ewing, Chris Duhan. I talked to them. I talked to Bruce a little bit. I talked to Elton Brand a little bit. I talked to Corey McGrady a little bit from the past generations. But it truly is a brotherhood. So when we actually do see each other and see each other out, we do stop and talk to each other or grab dinner or whatever case may be.
So you've got some of those names you mentioned are guys who are littered throughout the NBA in front offices, on coaching staffs. So you're staying connected with all the guys who are still in the league, I guess.
Right. I mean, basketball world is still a small world. So like I say, at some point you do come across each other in some way, shape, or form. Where, like I said, I was in the front office when I was scouting, with me being on the coaching staff. You'll run into a lot of guys at some point. So, like I said, basketball is a small world, so you'll see each other eventually.
And as you're, I assume you still watch the Duke games from wherever you are, and keep a little bit of tabs on the guys who are currently in the program. I know that like we talked about, the recruiting philosophy has changed a little bit, perhaps, and guys don't stay as long now. Do you see any great big men come through the program and get worried that anybody's going to break any of your big records? Or you think you're pretty safe for now?
Honestly, no. I never really had that thought. I mean, even before more and more guys are coming out one and done, I thought I had set enough cushion for myself from other players. But obviously, records are meant to be broken, so I'm sure one day it's going to happen. Just right now, with the fact that everybody's coming out after 1 or 2 years, it makes my records a lot safer than most other schools will have.
I'm not sure, because you and JJ Redick managed to set some pretty incredible scoring and rebounding and block shots records during your time at Duke. So don't count on those things falling anytime soon, I'd say.
Right. Well, hopefully I keep my name up in the record books a little bit longer.
Well, and you stay in the rafters no matter what. So that's got to be some solace, even if there is some big man who comes in behind you and manages to catch you in rebounds or block shots. Donald, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, you touched on him being in the rafters. I just have to know, because some people come in with that dream, that aspiration of being great and leaving with something like that. Did you anticipate, or did you think when you came at Duke that you would leave with your name and your jersey number in the rafters?
No, not at all. Not even a chance. It was always told to us that you had to graduate and be a player of the year. Those are two things that were told to everybody, coming into Duke. But like I said, I never, as a kid coming from a small city in Oklahoma, thinking that I was going to be, in the Raptors. I never had that in my mind. When I became Defensive Player of the Year my junior year, that's the first time I had entertained that thought where I was able to, possibly be in the Raptors. And then I wound up being back-to-back, Defensive Player of the Year my junior and senior year. And I got the call the year after I left that I was going to be, put in the Raptors. So it wasn't never going in to Duke that it was even a part of what I was trying to do. It just, tells a testament of my hard work of, getting better every year at Duke. And then I was able to put myself in that position.
And what was it like having a teammate who was, on that same level as you? JJ Redick was National Player of the Year the same year that you were a National Defensive Player of the Year. What was it like playing with a guy who was as effective on the court as you were?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it just showed how great our 1-2 punch that we had going on in college, and I still think that we had one of the best 1-2 punches in college basketball. And it's just a shame that we wasn't able to get back to the big stage and show that we actually can have a chance to win. But have a guy who was as great as he was on offense and have me as on defense, it was just a great situation for our team, and really helped us out.
All right, I want to finish up here with one last question. We ask this to every guest that comes on who is a former player. Tell us, and you can take this, you can make this funny, you can make this sort of serious and motivational. We just need to hear one really good Coach K story from your time at Duke, be it a great speech he gave. We've heard a lot about different funny demonstrations that he's done to fire up the team. So those always hit well. But one good Coach K story from your time at Duke.
I mean, I still tell people this story all the time. I mean, he was trying to get us into, having effort and energy. And I think we had just lost a game. I can't think who we lost to. We had just lost a game, and he was saying like how we're not playing like we wanted it. And we was over here not fighting, not getting for loose balls and everything. And then this is what, 2000, maybe 2004, 2005. So about 16 years ago. He's over here. He gets the ball, rolls on the floor, and he jumps and dives on the ball. And he's grabbing it like, you got to go after the loose ball like you really hungry, like you want it. And we kind of think like, okay, well, how you gonna get back up? That's how we kind of, our first thing is like, how you gonna get back up? Do we need to get back him, help him up and everything like that? But he's a guy that shows passion no matter what he does, and he's trying to tell us that 17, 18, 19, 20 years old kid that you can't have less passion than somebody his age, and he actually showing that he wants it, and that's something that he showed us time and time again. So I say that's probably one of my favorite stories about Coach K.
And that's a guy who doesn't have perfectly healthy hips. So that if he's able to dive on the floor like that you better be able to as well.
Exactly. So he showed that no matter what his ailment is, he's still out on the floor, really trying to get it. And there's no way you can't be the same way.
All right. Well, Shelden Williams, we appreciate your time. Some great stories from your time at Duke and afterwards. Obviously, everybody's in a strange place right now with the isolation period, but hopefully it ends soon and you get back to coaching and get back to basketball. You're obviously one of the all-time greats at Duke, and it was a pleasure having you. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
No problem. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, we want to thank Shelden Williams for taking some time to speak with us. We enjoyed his thoughts on his career and love getting to hear about his thoughts on the Brotherhood and some of the moments that defined his career in Duke Blue. And we are looking forward to seeing his coaching career take off. We know it's just getting started, and we will hear from him again down the road. But a reminder for all of you out there, the landlord is watching. Pay your rent. And to wrap up this episode, Sam, I'm going to let you take this. We have some words from Mike Gundy. He's a man. He's now well older than 40, but apparently he wants social distancing to end right now so he can get back to playing football.
Yeah, if you haven't heard it, I don't know if we're going to play the whole audio here, but you can just take a quick Google search of Mike Gundy's commentary on coronavirus. And I will say to everyone out there, on behalf of the Duke Basketball Report, please disregard recommendations from Mike Gundy about your safety and the safety of your friends and family. Stay inside. By May 1st, we will not be having football practice. There will not be football practice at Oklahoma State. There will not be football practice at Duke. There will not be football practice anywhere in the United States. It was inane and silly, and I'm glad that the only talking about coronavirus that Coach K has done in the last couple of weeks is an interview he did on his Sirius XM show with Dr. Fauci. So that's the good stuff. Listen to the experts and please stay safe. Jason, did you have anything more on Mike Gundy?
He's such an idiot. We are.
I'm the diplomatic one on the show here. I feel like
he's a fool, and we as a society are imperiled by people who are not listening to the doctors and the health experts. That's just the honest to God truth. I don't want to get in. We're not going to get into a political thing here about whether or not the president should be standing up and delivering 2-hour press conferences about topics that he has no idea what he's talking about. But please, can we please as a society just listen to the folks whose job it is to make us all healthy and keep us from dying? Because those people are giving us advice, and people like Mike Gundy are not listening to it. Mike Gundy is an idiot. Don't listen to him.
So I will jump on board here, and I will tell you this. Look, Mike Gundy does not have a DR before his name. He does not have an MD or a PhD after his name. After his name reads football coach. And I promise you, if you go to your boss and you say that Mike Gundy, football coach, told you that May 1st we can go outside and we can go back to work and we can have football practice, I hope you get social distancely slapped in the face, because this is real. I need everyone to understand that Mike Gundy was talking out of his ass, and his thoughts should go right back where they came from. Stay at home. Don't be an idiot. He can talk about football practice. And here's the thing, really, honestly, like even just putting his players at risk because he thinks, oh, they're young and they can get over it. That is exactly the type of stuff we are trying to avoid people understanding, because really what people aren't looking for the right words. They're looking for the right words for them. The thing that will make them the least bit uncomfortable. So if someone says, hey, you can go to a park, and someone says stay at home, they're going to go to the park because that is least intrusive on their lifestyle. And these words don't help, Mike. So I know you're a man. I know at this point, you're 50. Sit your ass down somewhere and shut up. That's all I have to say.
Well put, Donald.
Thank you.
Amen, brother.
And you know
Amen.
what? You know what? That's going to do it for this episode number 204 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Hey, guys, next episode, we may be keeping the interview train rolling with another former Duke great and
another big man. Another big man.
We'll just let that ride. But we also will hope to dip into the mailbag to answer some of your questions. We've gotten some great questions already. Please be rest assured that we are not throwing them away. We are just waiting for the best time to bring those out, and it may be next episode. If you have a question that you want us to discuss on the show, hit us up at dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to us at wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you're hearing while you're staying at home, leave us a review. It really helps, and we certainly appreciate it. But until next time, for Sam and for Jason, I am Donald. This is Duke Basketball Report Podcast number 204. Duke Band, take us home, pay your rent.